Building downtown.
The W5 spot you did. Kirill, do you want to jump in real quick here before I get to it?
I don't know. That's what I mean. I keep trying to word it right every
Avery
time.
Haynes, and I agree with what Kirill said. Watching that spot, like
that piece, I think it gave you the wrong look.
Yeah,
that's why I was excited to have you here and talk to you here, because I think they
get the full story.
Yeah, because that looked, I don't even know how to say it. It looked like a polished Hollywood cry piece for 5 minutes.
Yeah. It really did.
It didn't represent you. I don't
justice.
think I don't think they got into story of you. They just wanted to show her saying, "Oh."
Yeah. There's a lot of that. Oh. But the one thing from there, the hidden camera thing with that officer who was like, basically saying, think about what's going to happen. So was that you that like you had that hidden camera and set all that up?
Is that for the drive or?
Yeah. You were like in the car.
It was inside of a cruiser.
Yes,
yeah.
That's me. That was my.
So how did you come about that plan?
Oh, it wasn't my plan at all. W5 has some really amazing stuff, and I say this because I've talked to, and not to say other people aren't great, but Avery is so kind. She was so sweet. This was my first.
I'm sorry, and I want to jump in. I didn't mean to offend or nothing. That's just that opinion I got off the piece.
W5 does a great job. It was. Just
I don't know who Avery is. I don't know who W5 is, to be honest with you. I'm sure you know what I mean. It's just that I've seen that, and I heard the story, and I was just like, I don't know.
They came up with that. So basically, short answer, they
really?
The idea.
Oh shit!
The idea was that they wanted to show where I worked, and I had to sleep on that because I was like, go back to that division, drive in that area. I'm dealing with PTSD, and people like throw PTSD around like it's a joke, but it's not. Like,
oh no, it's not.
No.
Right. So these things are, they need to be brought to light. They need to be talked about. And so that's why I went on W5. So when they did that, it was really good. I was really happy with that, but you're absolutely right. It doesn't capture the whole thing. There's not enough time to tell your story, right?
That's what I mean. It's just a clean 5-minute polished piece. That's what it seemed like. You know what I mean? But if that's their idea and that's their doing, that's good on them. That's a great look. And
well, that's why I started Twitter.
Sorry, I was just gonna ask one quick question. Would that footage stand up in court in your favor?
Well, the question is which court? We're trying to go to real courts with real where there's public access, where everything will be on record. We want witnesses and all this, but we don't have access to that court. So I'm going to be going to Human Rights Tribunal, which I have no faith in. I think it's a complete waste of time. It's just horrific because it's years of sitting through people lying on the stand. There is no record of anything. They don't challenge anything. That nobody gets in trouble for it. So ultimately, the victim comes out even much more like far worse off than they did before they went there. So yeah. I think it's just the inferior process.
Can I ask though? I got lost on the off ramp here a little bit, but what you're going through now, like what you're talking about, is happening right now. All the things you've been getting in the mail, the people complaining about you tweeting, your lawyer that you had that you don't have now, like all this stuff that's happened in the last 2 or 3 months, let's say. What is that process? Like, are you now fighting having gotten suspended? Are you still at the point where you're trying to, get your accusations heard that, because something happened to you? Like what is happening right now that you're in the middle of?
So it's a very lengthy process. I filed my human rights complaint in 2018. So it's been over 2 years now.
Okay. So it's still that. I got it.
Yeah. So what's happened is I filed, human rights application. Now I have to wait for the dates. Then COVID hit. Then everything got pushed back. I myself and my colleagues had hired a lawyer previously, and we were completely, thrown off guard. We walked into mediation, and they said you have to sign a non-disclosure agreement. Forget you were ever a cop and all this. So I was like, I'm not doing this. Like, we need to bring awareness to this. I didn't get on this job to, walk away with my head down and disappear. Like, something has to change. So I said, forget it. I'm going to go to human rights. I'm just going to keep bringing awareness. I'm going to gather more women, because I know I'm not the only one. So now here I am. So the last thing I did was the duty of fair representation last Friday, which is against the union. And now I'm waiting to go to arbitration to fight my union.
Are there more women coming out joining you, or is there any?
There is an officer who just finished her 6 years battle at the Human Rights Tribunal. She won. The chair wrote she wrote a 153-page decision saying that 30 officers had lied.
So this is a gang. This is a ring, right? This is a cult. I don't know what the fuck to call it. It's a ring of some sort, right? Because if you keep covering something up and you stick together, that's some sort of an organized.
This is
organized crime
thing, right? I was gonna say, I don't know, organized crime within a police division.
Well, it's not a division. It's the whole police service. Like, don't forget, the chief is the chief, and the union is the union. So doesn't matter geography, what division you're in, you're going to the same union, you're going to the same chief. So what she was going through at 23 division was no different than what I was going through at 51 division, but they keep it so quiet. There is really no
can you use any of her case to help you?
Absolutely but it comes down to this again. I'm going to go sit in Human Rights Tribunal for 6 years, same thing. These guys are going to and it's going to be an orchestrated lie, because you guys have seen on Twitter how hard they've been trying to silence me. So I didn't start out as having a plan. Like, when I filed my human rights complaint, I truly didn't think I was going to end up here. Had I known, I don't know, maybe I would have done things differently, but I don't regret speaking up. I don't regret fighting back.
Hopefully you get it out, and the cause is right, and it seems like you got enough evidence. So I feel like you will reach a point. It's just gonna take forever, right?
You're definitely breaking down walls.
Any sort of tribunals is fuck. I went through mine for 7 years, and that's just an injury, right? You're going after like police,
the city of Toronto.
So you know what I'm saying? I'm sure something will pop up because the evidence is good, right? And you're speaking up and you're being strong and positive, and you'll reach the point. It's just you got to get ready for years of this bullshit, right?
So where I am now is a dead end wall for not just me, for all of us, all women, all the Black community, officers, the LGBTQ. We are all of us are at a point where we are like, okay, here's the evidence, here's the proof, here's what you're not doing. Yet every time they come back and say we don't have jurisdiction in court, and this all, if you believe it or not, comes down to a case called Weber versus Toronto Hydro. And this is a case in 1995. Weber was a guy, he had a union. He ended up suing his employer because they set him up. I mean, I'm not going to go into details, but the point is the decision that came out of that court is not the deciding factor for women and for, everybody else, which is, Black, Indigenous people of color. Officers, we're the only ones being affected by this decision really badly, because most of the violence we're faced with is racism and sexual violence. So most cases that are not going to court, that are not seeing the light of day, are sexual violence and racism. Going to human rights, getting lost, people give up, because who wants to fight for 7 years? Like, you have the evidence, it's just nobody wants to hear it. So we're at a point where we're going to be doing marching, protesting. We're going to go out there, we're going to wave the flag, and we're going to need to sit down with lawmakers and say, look, something is broken here and it's got to be fixed, because policing is like everything else. It needs to evolve. We are now stuck still in the 70s, and the system needs to be dismantled. It needs to be looked at. Something's got to change so that everybody's treated equally and fairly, because we are the front line of, what's between us and the public. And if you guys can't even contain yourselves around your colleagues, what are you doing to the public?
What I was going to say was, I do think it is an important distinction to make that, and Effy made this distinction earlier in passing as well, is that, as with any career, any industry, any city, country, state, whatever it is, there are also good people. So I would rather take that route than to say, oh, there's a few bad apples, because I think that saying there's a few bad apples, while true, grossly downplays the amount of bad apples there are. So it is important to point out that there are people there for the right reasons, doing the right thing, wanting the right thing to happen, and trying to do that. But it's also equally as integral to point out to Kirill's question and point that having the evidence and having the exposure and having Twitter and having social media is case in point why this needs to continue being talked about, because all of those things exist and generally get people nowhere. And as Effy, my co-host, will probably happily tell you, I generally keep my nose out of a lot of opinionated things, especially like this, because I've not had similar experiences. I support people in their plight. I've got the biggest mouth on fucking earth, so I have no problem saying what's right and standing up for what's right. But there is the element of it won't do you any good. And that's never a reason to not say anything, quite the opposite. But I say that all to speak to Kirill's question, which is, I think there are a lot of people who don't have a lot of experience with this, have never worked anywhere, even in a related field, who don't have a loved one or friend who have gone through it, who simply believe, and understandably so, that the system will work itself out. Meaning you have evidence, you're saying all this out loud, you have a lawyer, obviously it'll work out. And I think that that's the bigger point than all of the specific stories, is that it's not obvious that it'll work out because that's not the way it works. That's entirely the point of this whole conversation.
Yes. Yes, you're absolutely right, because there's so many different factors when it comes to my case. For example, I'm off sick right now. I have PTSD. When I first went off sick, I didn't know if they were going to follow me or what they were going to do. I lived near my division. Seeing police cars really freaked me out. And so, I had to sell my house to pay for lawyers and all this other stuff. And so I didn't know what's going to happen. All my life I had planned everything. Since I was a young girl, my mom had always said, I want you to be a dentist. And then later on, I decided I want to be a cop. So I've always had 2-3 jobs. I always worked towards something. So when I got to this point, it was like, I'm completely lost. I don't know what the future looks like. I don't know what's going to happen. But the point of this is, it has to be done. This is one of these things when you have to get in, it's going to get dirty. You're going to have to pull and push and cry and bleed and fight to get it done, because this has been going on for decades and it's a system of oppression. And, it took this long to get here, and it's going to take hopefully not that long to undo it. But, it has to start with awareness. It has to start with push. It has to start with resistance, because people are not just going to hand over power to you or give you your share of equality when they've denied you this long. So this is why I went on Twitter and I said, you know what? I don't know. I don't know if I'm ever going to feel safe going back to work. I don't know what kind of career I'm going to have left or where I'm going, but this has to be done, not only for me or for, my colleagues right now, but for the future of women in policing, for the communities. We need compassionate police officers. We need police officers that, aren't going around sexualizing their colleagues, aren't, being racist. And ultimately, I'm hoping that more women will speak up and people, I was raised to believe that, like in grade 6, when I was being, called all these names and stuff, I was getting into fights. And my mom was like, fight. If you can't, she was like, if this is what's happening. And I know that people are going to say, well, that's not the right way or whatever. But, a lot of these things I learned to stand up for myself, and it's coming handy now, not to say, I don't have, a lot of times I have bad days. There's days that I don't even want to get out of bed, whatever, but I'm proud of, standing beside this cause and taking it as far as I can. So in that sense, I'm proud of myself.
Well, that's a fighter. You're taking one for the team. You know what I mean? You're taking the hit for everybody else and saying that, fuck this, we got to fight. I'm all up for fighting the system. I'm behind you for sure.
A Russian is all up for fighting the system. No kidding.
That's funny. My ex-husband is Russian.
There you go.
Building downtown.
Wow. Okay.